Hello from outside the MKM Stadium where the fireworks are going off. Unfortunately, there were little fireworks on the pitch for Hull City. The majority of the fireworks came in the post-match interview of Tim Walter, where he questioned the backing of the fans. We'll come to that in just a moment. The scores on the doors: Hull City drew 1-1 with Portsmouth, and it wasn't great, if we are brutally honest. Game started, first minute, City started the game, gave the ball away, allowed Portsmouth to have a shot, but thereafter, the first probably 20 minutes or so, they were bright. They looked good, played with a bit of panache, got in front, really good goal, Charlie Hughes, lovely ball. It eventually got worked out to Mohamed Baloumi. Baloumi crossed, and Joao Pedro back in the side, one change. He was in for Chris Bedia, got across his man and turned it in first time at the near post. City 1-0 up after 11 minutes. Third game in a row the Tigers have scored first. But again, Achilles heel, same old problem. City couldn't get the second goal. They had a couple of really good chances, particularly another really good move. Baloumi down the right-hand side pulled it back for Xavier Simons, and you think that basically the crowd thought it was in. They were kind of that, that roar where everybody's that kind of roar of pre-anticipation that the ball's going to go in the back of the net. Unfortunately, Simons couldn't make it 3-3. Picked out the goalkeeper, and from then on, City really struggled. They looked like they were running in treacle. They lost their way. Portsmouth, who were all over the shop in that first 20-minute period, recovered, got through to half-time at 1-0. And you're kind of still thinking, right, City, go on and, second half, go on and win the game, because Portsmouth were there for the taking. Defensively, they got the worst. I think they conceded 26 goals. Jordan, I'll come to your question in a minute, mate. I think they conceded 26 goals in their first 12 games. The leakiest defence in the Championship by some distance. But unfortunately, they scored. I mean, I'm still in disbelief now. They scored within seconds of the restart, and it was a complete and utter shambles from City. Down the right-hand side, ball cut back. Simons missed his clearance, and Josh Murphy turned it in off Louis Coyle, and that was 1-1. And that was the football. It'll go down as the 46th minute. Pretty much from that moment on, the fans turned. Every poor pass was booed, jeered. The frustration, it was palpable, and Portsmouth were unable to score that second goal. Pandor made a brilliant double save in stoppage time, and it does feel, I think we've all come away from the game feeling like that was a defeat. They got a point, City finished 1 each, but the manager felt it felt like a defeat. Louis Coyle, I spoke to him afterwards, felt like a defeat, and I think we'd all confessed to feeling that was, it was a draw, but it felt like a defeat. And then obviously they were booed off at full time. And look, I cannot make any excuses for the fans turning on them, because we've talked about this on these videos that we do in the MKM Stadium car park all year. We're now November the 2nd. They've won 3 games at home in 2024, and it's been turgid. And it goes back to Liam Rossini's time. So let's not think it was all sunshine and lights before that. Last season the home form at times was diabolical, and it's the reason that City finished 7th and not 5th or 6th. We've done that to death. But this season, they've won 1 game. They beat Cardiff at home. At home, if you're coming here week after week after week, watching that, you're going to be frustrated. There's 22,000 here again today, and 20,000 of those are going home just fed up, because the home form is diabolical, and it's not just results that are garbage. The performances on the whole are so bad. It's funny, because we had it in the press room before the game. We're having a discussion about entertainment, and this perception in football that football is about entertainment, and you go to be entertained, which I don't agree with. Football is about winning. If we get entertained along the way, fantastic. But ultimately, football is about winning. If you want to be entertained, you go and watch a band, or you go and watch a show, or you go and do something like that. You don't come and watch football. We'd all love our teams to play like peak Barcelona under Pep, when you've got Xavi and Iniesta in midfield. That's an ideology that isn't reality for 99.9% of football supporters. You go to watch your team win, and had they have won today, had they have got a late goal, we'd have all been going home we'd have been buzzing, wouldn't we? We'd all been happy that City had won the game. We'd be questioning parts of the performance, but we'd say, look, they found a way to win the game. Because they haven't, we now dissect everything, and we look back at it and we go, that was pretty garbage. The first 20 minutes, they played well. Although I would start by saying, from the kickoff, Pedro's kickoff, they went back, and it was like, and people are moaning about the atmosphere at here and questioning about it and saying it's not good enough. But my argument with it is the kick-off, Pedro, the atmosphere is decent before the game. We have the song and everybody's up for it. But then the kick-off, and they go back all the way to Panda, and they play a couple of risky passes, give the ball away, and the opposition have a shot. And it's like somebody pops the balloon or somebody sucks the life out of the atmosphere. And it's like everybody's up for it. And they go, oh. And it's desperate. And and everybody sits on their hands then, because that first minute where you want the teams to really hit the ground running and go for it, they've gone back to the goalkeeper, played a couple of pointless passes and given the ball away on the edge of their own penalty area when the opposition have had a shot. Yes, they then score the goal after, 11 minutes, and suddenly everybody feels a bit happier. But I just want to see more from them at home. I just think that, it's like the life of the fans in this year has been sucked out of them at home. 3 wins in 2024, 1 win this season, and you're chucking cup games as well. And you're like, they went out of the FA Cup at the first time of asking. They went out of the Carabao Cup at the first time of asking, both here at home. And you can understand why fans are just getting sick to the back teeth of it, because they're paying an awful lot of money to come and watch their team, and they've drawn at home to Portsmouth, who, with respect, yes, they're the team bottom of the table, but in that first half they should have been out of sight. That should have been 2 or 3 at half time, and the second half, you just get through it and you maybe go and score a couple more, or very worse, you come away and you see it out 2 or 3-0. They're not doing it. And again, and I've been hammered for saying this throughout the season, I look at City and I wonder what are they trying to do? What is their style? What is their tactical approach? You could put a 10-year-old in charge of a team in the Championship, and they would play some nice football. They would play a couple of times, they would beat at the press, and they would create something. Because these are Championship players, these are elite level footballers that have got a lot about them. So you could put anybody in charge of them, and they would create something, and at times they would look decent. But they're playing, for me, fundamentally the style is not working. I've said it throughout the season, I don't think this style is going to work. Nothing I've seen in the opening 13 games plus cup matches is changing my opinion. And I just don't think it's working. I really don't think it's working. And I cannot argue with any punter in that stadium this afternoon booing at full time, because it's boos of frustration, because we all come here to see Hull City win football matches. And we've all come here, and I'm saying the calendar year, and I know Tim Walter isn't to blame for what happened pre his arrival, obviously, but I'm factoring in that you have to understand that reaction today. You have to understand what's gone before it, and to win 3 games at home in 2024 out of 13 or 14 games is pitiful. It really is. And you throw in the fact that performances on the whole at home have been pretty dire. That's why you're getting a reaction. Everybody just fed up. So that's the background. Then we get to the post-match press conferences. What I would say is, I know that Mike White, my colleague at the BBC, spoke to Tim, and I know that Tim sort of went in on the fans. Unfortunately for Tim, he reacted badly to those questions, and the questions are there. There was nothing wrong with what Mike asked. They're reasonable questions. When your team, and let's be honest, it wasn't just the post-match reaction, it was throughout the second half. They were booed, they were jeered, the fans were frustrated. And today, it wasn't the first occasion. If you've been here this season, you will be acutely aware that fans at times have jeered, have booed, have shown their frustration at facets of their performances and the way they play, because it's been turgid, it's been boring. So today was just, I guess, kind of it was kind of the tipping point, I think. So anyway, we get to his interview. Obviously, he's criticised the supporters in his own way, and saying that the Pompey fans were supportive, the Hull City fans were not. Well, that's never a great look, is it, when you turn on your own fans? And however you intend it, I think what I would say is Tim Tim was much more considered when he came in to speak to the written press. He sort of said that what you would expect him to say, that we need to stick together, we need to be on the same page. The players are trying, they don't make mistakes on purpose, but we need to be better. That's what I would have expected him to say in all his interviews. Unfortunately for him, obviously the one he's done his radio interview and he's gone in and said, he's basically called out the fans, and that is a place that if a manager calls out the fans, it's very hard to come back from. And unfortunately for Tim, he has no credit in the bank. I think people were understanding early in the season that he'd been dealt a tough hand with recruitment. The recruitment was slow, it was ponderous, and it was last minute. And basically, the whole of August was written off. I think a lot of people were giving him credit for that, and were understanding of results being fairly poor earlier on because of the recruitment situation. But he has had time, and we're not seeing a big enough improvement. Yes, they've led in the last 3 games, but they've not done enough in those games to go and win the game. And I think so that would be a worry. But I do think that when you start questioning the support of the supporters that are here every week, travel up and down the country, pay an awful lot of money, they're entitled to vent their frustration and what they see. And I just think it's a dangerous game when you start seeing, as a manager, when you start calling out supporters. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Lots of questions, Luke, Jordan. My gut feeling, I'll be honest, it hasn't really changed. I want Tim to do well. We all want Tim to do well. We all want Hull City to be a team that are winning football matches and challenging for a place in the Premier League. It suits nobody to see City struggling, to see City at the bottom end of the table. That doesn't help anybody. I know there'll be one or two that think it suits the media narrative to have a team that aren't doing well. That's not true. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our lives are all better when Hull City are winning football matches. We all want Hull City to be a Premier League team. At the minute, they're nowhere near it. And my gut feeling hasn't changed. I don't think this is going to work. I think it's a matter of time until the manager goes. Whether that's tomorrow, next week, the week after, in 3 months' time, I think that the manager is on. I never thought it was going to work out. I don't think the style of football is suitable for the Championship, for the squad of players. So, for me, it has always been and will continue to be a matter of time until a change is made. Now, obviously, Adjun, the owner, has he's backed himself into a bit of a corner, in fairness, because obviously with making the change he did in the summer and going after Tim Walter, he's backed himself into a corner. He needs this to work, and I think perhaps does that cloud the judgment somewhat? Does that make this go on longer than probably what it should do? Look, I don't like changing managers. I'm never one to advocate sacking a manager, because I think it happens too much in football, and teams need to be stable, clubs need to be stable. Managers need time to develop their philosophy, as is the buzzword, and they need time to get their ideas across. But, and I've said this consistently, I don't think the players are buying into it completely. If you've not heard Regan Slater's interview, fish it out. He talks about there's obviously an issue there. I don't think that is a dressing room that is completely 100% behind their manager. I may be speaking out of turn, but I just don't believe that is a team completely at ease with what they're being asked to do. And I've said that, I know we're only in November, but I've said it throughout the season so far, throughout the summer. I don't believe that they are a team at ease with their tactics and their responsibilities. So, yeah, like I say, I'm never one for changing managers. I think we need to. I think, given what's gone on behind the scenes, obviously with changes behind the scenes, and Liam leaving in the summer, so many players coming and so many players going, that is a concern. But I'm not changing my opinion that I've been consistent throughout, that I don't think this is going to work. I don't think this is sustainable. And days like today further enhance my inner belief that Tim's giving it a go. He's giving it a go, but I feel that a change will come, and it might not come tonight. It might not come tomorrow. It may come during the international break if they don't get enough points away at Oxford on Tuesday night and then at home to West Brom. But it just feels a matter of time, and I feel like we are. I said it in the press room we were talking about it before, and I feel like we're treading water until that time comes. Whether however long that is going to be, a change is going to it's just going to happen at some point. So, you know, it's what happens in that interim period. But as I say, I just think that you get yourself on a sticky wicket when you start questioning the people that ultimately pay your salary, through tickets, through shirt sales, through God knows what else, sponsorship. Yeah, ultimately Adjun pays the overall bill, but the supporters play a huge role in funding a football club going forward. And when you start criticising them, however that's intended, and I do feel from it a bit, because I know what he was trying to get at. He just explained it badly. With me, he was much calmer, called on the club to stick together, the fans to stick together, to try and, you know, everybody. That is the message that he should have put out from the get-go, but he didn't. He allowed himself to get angered by, you know, entirely reasonable questions that the fans wanted answering, you know, and when you do that, you're on a sticky wicket. So we'll have to wait and see. So that's where we're at. Yeah, all is not well, and City haven't been beaten. I dread to think what would have happened here had they have lost the game, because, as I say, we're talking as if they did. They didn't. They drew. That's now 3 draws in a row, and they go to Oxford on Tuesday night looking to win a game for the first time in what feels like an eternity. It's now 5 games without a win for City. You know, they've had 72% of the ball today. They've had 3 shots on target, and all those 3 shots came in the first half. Not a single shot on target in the second half against Portsmouth, who have, as I said at the top, the worst defence in the league. You can make stats fit any narrative. You really can. I just put that there, you know. 72% possession, 3 shots on target, none of which came in the second half. That is, by anybody's standards, not good enough at this level. David, yeah, I said it was must win. Yeah, and I kind of checked myself when I said that, because I was aware that we would only be in November, and we were only 12 games in. This is the 13th. That stating it was a must win feels a dramatic thing to say. But, you know, I spoke at length to Paul Warne at Pride Park last week, and he was adamant, both on record and off record, that he felt City are going to get in the playoffs. I'd love to know what. I love Paul Warne, and that's coming from somebody that, you know, has an axe to grind against Derby County. You know why. But I've got a lot of time and respect for Paul Warne. But I'd love to know where he's getting his optimism from, that this is a team that can get in the top 6 under this current structure, because I don't believe it can. I believe with a different way of playing, a different approach. Yes, it's got that capability, although goals still worry me. You know, Pedro scored a really good goal today. There was nothing else. So do they score enough goals? Are they scoring enough goals? And that was the issue last season. They couldn't get in the top 6 because they didn't score enough. They didn't score enough goals. Now that hasn't been remedied. They failed in the summer to get the strikers in that they needed. They failed in January to get the strikers in that they needed to replace Liam Delap. So there's a fundamental problem in the recruitment in getting in strikers that can score goals. Better looks okay. He doesn't look like a striker that's going to score me 15 goals. Pedro, that was a really good goal today. Took it brilliantly. But he offered nothing else. Mason Burstow, the manager's criticised him and said he's not doing enough in training, so he's clearly not going to play. And on the subject of Schumacher, a lot of people would want Steven Schumacher, if you know what I nearly said then, would want Steven Schumacher if the change was made. I don't believe that is something that could happen, largely because Jared Dublin is the director of recruitment, head of recruitment, whatever you want to call it here. I don't believe they saw eye to eye at Stoke City. So, while I wouldn't want to rule it out necessarily, I would be extremely surprised if that was a change. You know, we're talking here. Tim Walter is still in a job. Hull City still have a manager. If a change was made, I don't believe Schumacher would be a possible candidate all the time that Jared Dublin is here. So we can probably rule that one out. There's a few, you know, I don't want to get into that because it's kind of disrespectful to the manager that is in the job currently, and he may well be in the job come the end of the season. It feels difficult tonight, doesn't it? Because of the emotion of the reaction throughout the second half and at full time, and given his post-match interview with the BBC. I have to point out, for those that have just joined us, he was much calmer with when I spoke to him. He was much more reasoned and played the party line of we need stability, we need to be together. David, in terms of Tango, and I don't think it makes much difference with respect to Tan. Tan was a very vociferous figurehead at the football club, but in terms of his actual work and output, the optics can look a bit awkward that Tan's gone, Lee Darnborough's gone, and Liam's gone, and obviously his coaching staff. But I don't think Tan going makes a huge amount of difference. So I don't think that makes a huge amount of difference. Tan going, people behind the scenes are just carrying on as normal. So, it's football, isn't it? People make decisions. Adjun's made the decision about Tan going. Tan's got another job now, by the looks of it. So it is. Yeah. In terms of who was it? Sorry, just 1 second. Who said that? I'm trying to pick up. Somebody mentioned about disrespect. Disrespect for the fans. Look, Tim's made his comments, hasn't he? Tim has to front them up. He has to accept that he's going to get hammered for them. And as I said before, without wishing to labour the point, when you criticise your fans, you're on a sticky wicket, and he hasn't got any credit in the bank to be able to raise something. So it feels like it's the beginning of the end in terms of that relationship, which has never really been. The fans and the manager have never really bonded. In truth, there were a couple of there was a nice moment at QPR away, but you know better than I do, because you guys are on the terraces. I don't feel, being around the club and listening to the supporters in the stands, that Tim and the fans have really bonded. So I don't think there'd be too much desperation if a change was made. Steve McLaren in the ground today. Casey Palmer, Jamaica. I guess Steve is over here watching a lot of UK-based players for Jamaica. That would explain that. In terms of a change, is a change going to be made? It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because as I keep saying, Adjun is put an awful lot on. He's put his neck on the block here for this manager. So he will want it to work out. He will want to give it as much time as possible. But we're getting into that. We are getting into that twitchy time now, aren't we? We're a few days out from the international break. We know, obviously, Adjun he got rid of Shotta in the international break, albeit in the October break. Right at the end, just after that defeat at Swansea, that was a calamitous one, wasn't it? And just before I think it was Luton Town, he brought in, he sacked Shotta on the morning of the game against Luton, and Andy Dawson was put in caretaker charge for 8 games. So clubs get twitchy at this time of the year. It's the last international break. It's the last chance to make a change, really, before the transfer window kicks in. Look, I think it's becoming difficult. And Steve, you're right. Once you disrespect the fans, you're done. Yeah, that hasn't gone down well, and I get it, and I get the fans' frustration, because 2024 has been a complete shambles here. So yeah, look, we could go on all night. I appreciate your comments as always, because it's important to get the fans' take on this, because, as I say, that's an interesting one with his comments post-match. So we will see him, assuming that nothing happens. We will see him on Monday. He will preview the game at Oxford on Tuesday. We will have the podcast at the 1904 Club on Twitter if you want to get in touch, for you on Monday with myself. Look, sorry, just before I go, Tony, it was when we went through on the bounce, it was working, and not everyone was happy. But now, I've got to be honest, mate, I'm not sure they were. I think a lot of people were. We were all obviously chuffed to bits that they'd won 3 in a row, Stoke, QPR, Cardiff. We were all absolutely over the moon. But I think we also were acutely aware that it wasn't perfect, that those wins papered over 1 or 2 cracks, and we also took into account the quality or lack of the opposition. So I don't think anybody was doing dancing through hoops and predicting Hull City to win the league when they won those 3. And it is now only 3 wins in the season, and they all came in that cluster. So whilst that was great, and there were hugely positive signs in those 3 games, there was still I think some of us were still urging a little bit of caution to not get too carried away, because they were against Stoke, who just sacked a manager and only had appointed a new one a couple of days before, and that was still in transition. Cardiff were bottom of the table and garbage, and QPR were garbage. So yeah, City could only beat what was in front of them, and they did a terrific job. I'm taking nothing away from them, because they were 3 really good wins. They scored 3, 3 and 4, and we were all positive. We wanted them to kick on, but they haven't been able to, have they? Yeah, they've played Sunderland, but they were fairly poor in that and were deservedly beaten. They played well for 20 odd minutes, maybe half an hour against Burnley, got a point, should have won the game. Should really have won at Derby last week, but probably didn't do enough to win the game. And they played well for 20 minutes here today. You know, got the goal, should have gone 2-0 up, and then fell away and offered absolutely nothing. Looked like looked lost, frankly. So, you know, when you were looking for that team to kick on after those 3 wins, to really build on it and go again. And there's also that game at Norwich to throw in as well, by the way. So the more we see from this, the more those 3 wins look flukes, or look ones in isolation. You know, what we've seen so far, those 3 wins aside, hasn't been great, has it, if we're brutally honest? And like I say, I'm not one that wants to see a manager lose his job. I'm not one that wants to see change, because I think, as I've said before, I want stability. I want a manager to come in and do well and be given time. But there has to come a point when you wonder, is this going to work? I don't believe it is going to work. I'd love to be proved wrong. I'd love to be proved that he goes and wins the next 5 or 6, and we turn a corner, and everything in the garden is hunky dory. But there's too many things that don't feel right now, and that's where we're at. So, you know, results are one thing. Results aren't very good. You know, let's be fair. But there's things bubbling away underneath as well. You know, you've got players coming out saying they're not over, you know, they've got no relationship with the manager. You've got the manager coming out and criticising players. You've now got the manager coming out and criticising the fans. You know, that's not a happy camp. That isn't a happy place. You know, no matter what you say, no matter how you try and dress it up, you can't get away from the fact that isn't a happy camp. That's not being negative. That's not trying to put media spin on it and drive a narrative. That is looking at the barefaced facts. The manager's criticised the fans. He's criticised his players. One of his key players, who is a fan's favourite, has raised questions. The optics aren't particularly great. And as we stand here at the stadium after a game where, you know, they've not been beaten, but it feels like it. So, look, that's probably all we've got time for tonight. There'll be a more in-depth chat on the podcast on Monday. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for getting in touch. If you've got something you want to get off your chest, tweet us at the 1904 Club. We will get those comments read on Monday, because I feel it could be quite an interesting show. So thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you again soon.